Okay, we're good to go.
Perfect. Okay. I guess we want to start off with that first question on what makes a person intelligent.
You want to go first, Will?
Sure. Yeah. I guess in my opinion, I think there are a couple things that make a person intelligent. I think the first thing to consider would obviously be like there's obviously different types of like intelligence in terms of like people think of like street smarts and like book smarts. Those are two things to consider when thinking about intelligence. But also just like emotional intelligence and stuff like that, because we talk a lot in this class about like understanding like how emotion impacts learning. So I think that's like a big thing that like really like is a standout on what makes intelligence, but also just like understanding like why things happen. So like that'll be like a lot of book smarts, but also like understanding street smarts and understanding how people interact with each other and how they will react. That is also something that like really is important when thinking about intelligence, or at least for me.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that there are different levels, and like in our modern times, there's so many testings, and they've come up with so many not modern day diagnosis because they've always been around, but they've been able to label them easier, I guess, and social media and internet and the news has brought to life all of these things that people could have been suffering with for a long time, but we've just now discovered them. And so I feel like it takes away from people thinking that they're actually intelligent or good at something because they've been labeled with, a slight Down syndrome or dyslexia or any of these things when really that still doesn't mean that they're not an intelligent individual.
Yeah, I think y'all both did like a really good job of answering it. Like Will said, like emotionally intelligent, that's a huge part in this class. And like being able to like read on social cues and stuff, I think is something super important, especially like in a workplace situation. But also like I guess intelligence would just come down to be like your ability to learn and understand stuff too, like more of a like a simplistic approach, like how well can you make decisions based on like what you have and like what's understood at hand. So that's kind of what I think intelligence is like problem solving, kind of maybe like um reasoning, like Will said, emotional intelligence, and kind of just like understanding the problem and also being able to manage your emotions. I think that's something that's super important in intelligence.
I agree. You can be like the smartest person in the room, but if you can't manage your emotions, like if something gets you upset at work or whatever the problem might be, nothing gets solved. And so therefore you become maybe not the smartest person in the room.
100%. Emotions are like a key part in every like emotional intelligence is just as important as like any other type of intelligence.
I agree. Okay. Next one, I think we covered that one pretty good.
Yeah. I
Okay,
guess
I
the
can I
next
can
one
read this
is
one, Will, if you want.
zero time.
Sorry, y'all. I'm driving to a safety stand down, so I don't have it in front of me. I'm
I
leaning
can
on
read
y'all
it.
quite a bit.
This
No,
one
you're
says,
Mhm.
how does neuroplasticity influence adult learning, and what are some ways educators can leverage this concept in instructional design? So what I got from this is that neuroplasticity is like the brain's ability to recognize itself, whether this be by forming like new neural connections, like when you develop throughout life. And that's like such as like adapting to new experiences, like learning from your mistakes, etc. And like if you got injured on something, you would know not to do that again. Um, so I guess like in adult learning, neuroplasticity means that you can like learn new skills and knowledge. Um, and it might take more effort than like in childhood. I don't know, like I've always heard of it like when you're younger, like it's your brain's like a sponge. So like any like learning stuff is a lot easier, especially learning languages. Like if you learn a language younger, it's just a lot easier to like for your brain to formulate that. So I guess maybe like I said, would be learning a language would be something that's different. Um, and what are some ways that educators can leverage this? Maybe like more immersive activities. Um, to strengthen those neural pathways and just making it like overall more involved. So you're able to like have more repetition in like a setting that would benefit you. That's kind of what I think.
I agree. I also think that like as we get older, we think it's harder for us to self-reflect, and so we really have to work on our brain to be like, okay, maybe this was me. Or I think a lot of social media has brought to light trigger warnings. Like we didn't even realize that was a thing, really. And now we realize like you have to train or teach your brain how to avoid or know that that's going to happen to you, or know, be like aware, I guess is a way to put it, that you might react in a certain way if X, Y, and Z happens. And so you have to train your brain on how to react or not absorb, or I don't know what a good way to put that is, but so that you can prevent something from happening again. Like when we were younger, yeah, learning from our mistakes, and even as we're older, learning from our mistakes is a huge deal of it. But I also think that there's like things in the world now that we have to really think about before we proceed. And sometimes our emotions, going back to question one, gets the best of us, and we don't always do that. But that's totally in your brain.
Yeah, 100%. And like what you're saying, like as we get older, it's like it's really important for us to learn more, even though like I feel like we start thinking like, yeah, I get how everything works. Like I feel like we have this sort of like confidence as we like sort of get older. Like we've been like, oh, I've been living for like a while, so I have like you get to like a certain like comfort in knowing like, oh, I know what's happening and I don't need to like learn more sort of thing. And you might not like have that growth mindset. And I think like something that like is important to like for educators to leverage is just that to make sure to just like really try to influence adults into having like a growth mindset, you know what I mean? Having being like a lifelong learner. Because neuroplasticity is all about like learning new things and being a lifelong learner and like making sure that you continually learn so you make those new connections in your brain. And I feel like that's something that really needs to happen like from educators to actually like impact like these adult learners. And I don't know, that's just kind of what I was thinking.
I agree. As we get older, self-reflection becomes less and less because, like you said, we already think we've been around the block. We know everything. We don't need to do this. We don't need to do that. We've, you know, already become accomplished in certain areas of our life, and we know it all. But really, like every single day is an opportunity to learn something. Even in HR, like it's always evolving. Ways to do things are evolving. New systems and mandates and stuff are coming into play. Like every day there's something to learn. And I think that some people, once they reach a certain point, they are not open to learning anything else. They think that they've got their degree, they're professional in their industry, they don't need to learn anything, and they handle every situation correctly. They don't think they need to self-reflect on any aspect of their lives, and they just basically put themselves in a box, I like to say.
Yeah, and I think that like when that happens, that's where a lot of like division ends up happening and a lot of like arguments end up happening, where it's like when you have a conversation with someone and it becomes an argument, it doesn't a lot of the misunderstanding comes from I know what I'm talking about, so I don't know understand why we would need to have this conversation.
Yeah. Or even like, I've even had to learn like when we're having conflicts in the shop or with employees, people still need to be heard. So even though you don't want to hear their side of the story, or you don't want to know why they didn't call into work that morning for 6 days in a row, you still have to let them say that part and be understanding of the fact that, okay, well, I understand that you felt bad and you didn't feel the need to tell us you weren't coming into work. But because you did it 6 times in a row, I'm still going to have to let you go.
100%. I guess are we good to move on to that next question?
Yeah, I think we answered it pretty good. There's a lot of questions too on this one. I think it's like
Yeah.
3 more.
Oh, there is so good.
Yeah. So, what role does emotion play in cognitive function and learning? And I guess I'll start off with that. Well, as we've talked about last time or the one before that, like your emotions have a big impact on like your cognitive learning. You know what I mean? Like whenever you are feeling down, you'll be less likely to learn, and when you're feeling more happy and engaged, you'll be more likely. So like when a emotionally actually I could do that, but I just remembered something from psychology which kind of helped me sorry that kind of like brings like ties into this, which is like flashbulb memory, which is like whenever you have like a very emotionally like important event happen, you will remember that event more. So it's like if something is very important to you, you'll be able to remember it more. That's kind of like some psychology and cognitive learning and that sort of thing, but emotions also dictate what you remember. Your emotions will dictate what's important to you, what's not important, and at the end of the day, that's how you learn.
Yeah, for sure. There's so many times when I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so stressed out and I cannot remember. I'll be like, I know that you answered this question for me, but I'm gonna ask you again because I was emotionally stressed and I did not absorb what you were saying to me.
Yeah, I'll kind of add on to like kind of what Will said. Like some emotions, like if it's a super like beneficial experience, you're gonna like remember that more. Um, and I would say also like just being like interested or like passionate about the topic, you're gonna be a lot more focused on, and you're gonna be like you're gonna remember what you did a lot more rather than being kind of like if you're anxious or stressed, like studying for a test or something, like it's not gonna help you the most. Definitely not when like the stakes are high. So that can 100% like disrupt your attention and memory just by having like negative emotions. So it's like two sides to it. So being able to, I think, balance your emotions and being able to find something like a sustainable routine that works for you is super important. Whether that be like starting your morning off similar every time, like I've been trying to do that. Or like trying to help keep your mind clear during certain stuff. Like I don't have too many tests this year, but um when I do study for a test, I like to do it like a certain way just because I feel like it helps me. Um, and I would also say like social interactions matter a lot, especially in cognitive function and learning, because like emotions, especially from others, like if you have a supportive teacher and he's like motivating you, encouraging you to study, just to be like a better version of yourself, I think that's something that's gonna help a lot in your learning and like your life in general, where you're able to grow from those mistakes that if you make those and you're able to learn a lot, because you know you're gonna have someone in your corner help motivate you and kind of push you through. So I'd say that's something like how does emotion play in that?
Yeah. And that might be good because we've got like so just so you you know how many questions are left. We are halfway through, and I think we've had about like how long have we been doing this? 10 minutes ish.
Yeah, we can move on to the
15,
next one.
yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
So I
Yeah.
can do this one. It says, how was it? How do aging and cognitive decline impact adult learning, and what strategies can be used to support older learners? So, aging definitely can like reduce how quickly you process new information. Like I think we've seen it with our parents, like them trying to use social media apps is like a good example of that. So that's something that it helps, it kind of diminishes how quick you can process new information. You usually have a weaker working memory, so like holding in information, um, it sometimes gets harder with age. Um, so I think strategies that can be used to support like older learners would be kind of like sectioning out tasks into like chunks. So they're like more smaller and manageable. So they're able to retain the information better rather than just be like give them all the information and hope they retain it. So that's something. Um, Maybe use flashcards if it's something super serious so they can help recall like facts and stuff. Could also use like I said, like they probably use Quizlet. I mean, I don't think they even need to use a Quizlet, but they could do that. I think a super important one would be like relating what they're learning to prior knowledge, so they have something to tie back to. Because if they're able to like link old information with the new information they're learning, it's gonna make it a lot more easier. But that's kind of what I would say.
Yeah, I'd agree. And like I think we've gone over in this class multiple times how many different like everybody's a different learner. and in all of my HR classes, that seems to be what we focus on, is like that's how everybody can be a different learner, and how when you have to present something, you have to be able to cater to all those different types of learners and make sure that they're retaining the information. And I mean, some people can just read a book and they're good to go, or they can read over the information, they're good to go for a test. But I literally have to drill it into my head, touch it, feel it, write it down 10 times, look at a flashcard. I cannot just read and absorb.
Right. Sorry. Yeah, also just to like add on, like you were saying, like learning is just like, sorry, just to add on to like the adult learning part, like when people get older, like you said, they become like slower in processing and all that. And it becomes really important to like be adaptable to like every type of adult learner. Like you said, some people are able to just read and learn, and some people like need that extra time. And especially as people get older, they need that like extra like structure and extra like time and repetition to actually understand like what's going on. And I think Luke said something about like working memory on like how they won't be able to multitask and stuff like that. So just being able to really reduce the amount of information that is going to be learned is really important, especially when thinking about older learners. Um, and just like making sure and ensuring that they will be able to learn something the most effectively they can, is what I just wanted to add on.
Yeah, I agree. And like even we see it in our modern day with like our older generation trying to adapt to all the technological ways of life. I watched it the other day at a doctor's appointment. They handed this old couple an iPad to do their like paperwork or whatever through, instead of just taking a clipboard and a pen, and they literally could not do it. It's just, it's hard as you go on. You've done things a certain way for so long, and once you've done it for say 50, 60 years, it's harder for you to learn how to do it. When us, we just pick it up and kind of roll on with it.
100%. And I think it's a lot of that what we were talking about earlier about being a lifelong learner. And at some point you kind of like you kind of plateau and you're like, I've learned what there is to learn and all that kind of stuff. But also it's just your brain working against you. So a little bit of both.
Just let me live. I think that's what some people want to say.
Yeah. Like it's one of my friends, not to get too off track, but one of my friends was like, yeah, my grandma's like 90 something years old, and then she was saying something pretty crazy, but like if that's what she needs in order to in order to live peacefully, I'm not gonna be the one to disrupt that, you know what I mean? And I was like, yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess our fifth
Yeah, I want to do the
question.
next
Yeah. Our fifth question is, what are the differences between declarative and procedural memory, and how do these affect how adults acquire new knowledge and skills? So, I can talk a little bit about that. So, declarative versus procedural, right? Declarative is more about like facts and events, so like actually like the explicit knowledge, and procedural is how we actually perform those tasks. So, declarative memory is more about like recalling and verbal explanations, but like procedural is going to be like um kind of unconscious. Like as you worked towards procedural memory, you know what I mean? You doing something routinely and doing it often, that's what allows for procedural memory. I know that one of the studies that I know about is like I forgot which guy it is. There's a bunch of like case studies, but like there's this guy who lost all even like short-term memory, I believe, and was only able to keep long-term memory. Or no, not even that. He wasn't able to make new memories at all. It was kind of crazy. He was at home. However, he could still go on walks and like find his way back to his home because he was still able to have that procedural memory of like going on walks and that sort of thing. And that's like procedural memory, but like declarative memory is all about like actually like learning those like specific details and studying and all that kind of stuff. And so how do these like affect the acquisition of new knowledge and skills? Well, it's like declarative memory is like gonna be that meat of like learning those concepts. However, procedural memory is gonna be how you actually retain that knowledge and actually like use that knowledge in the future.
Yeah, I'd like to know, like, look into how much procedural memory is muscle memory. Because that's crazy to me that
I
like
think
they
that's like a
can
lot.
do,
Like I think that's like a big like portion of procedural memory for sure.
yeah, because it's crazy how people can lose their minds literally with whatever disease might be attacking their brain. But there's some things that they can just still do that you would be like, that you're like, oh my gosh, maybe they aren't losing their mind.
I guess I'll go right. So Will kind of explained it pretty well. I just thought of it like declarative memory is like memories for facts and events, and then procedural memory would be like memory for skills. Um, and so these both like you kind of need both these, um, in my opinion, to like help acquire new knowledge and skills because they're kind of like in tune with each other. So I think they benefit each other, and you kind of both need them. So like an example of this would be like cooking, like. So you would need to know the ingredients that you're cooking in, which would be like declarative. Um, and
Mhm.
then actually cooking it would be procedural. So they work hand in hand with each other and you can't have one without the other. Um, I'd say that if y'all want to move past this one, we can because we can't really
Yeah,
dig
how
because
many do we have left?
we have one more.
Oh yeah, we'll go through. But like what you're saying with the cooking, just to add, like, okay, you have to know when you're gonna burn the dang thing, right?
Yeah.
So that's more procedural.
Yeah,
And
100%.
you learn all that through practice too, typically.
Yeah.
So I can do the
Okay.
last one. It says, how does stress and sleep influence brain function and learning capacity in adults? So I would say stress, it typically impairs your memory. So, like, if you ever get stressed out or have like a panic attack, typically you get like a large cortisol spike, which is sometimes you'll feel like your chest get tight. And the stress will typically like damage an area in your brain, for memory. So sometimes it'll make learning harder. Um, as well as like having poor sleep. It typically well, you're not gonna feel as energized, so it's gonna be harder to focus. And it's gonna affect like your attention and memory consolidation. So if you've been studying all night, that's why like I don't think all-nighters are the best because if you're studying all night and then you get like 2 hours of sleep, you're not really gonna remember as much as what you studied. Whether if like you studied for like a couple hours and got like a good night's sleep. Um, so I'd say like if you like having a way to manage your stress in a positive way, and then having like a good sleep schedule would definitely like positively impact your like learning capacity. I think we all kind of figure that out, like from going from high school to college, that like you need to like actually have like a good sleep schedule. Um, and especially I'm sure like in having like a real job too, you would like want to actually prioritize like having a good sleep schedule. Where you're not sleeping like only 5 hours a night some nights. You're getting like a decent amount of sleep and you're not like messing up your circadian rhythm. And then you're getting stressed from that. So I think it's kind of like a snowball effect. When you like have a ton of stress or like you're getting poor sleep, it can just amplify and like take away from one another. And there's many techniques people know, like there's meditation, you put on um soothing music. There's a ton of things that you can do to help manage the stress and help like mitigate the negative effects from it. So that's what I would kind of say.
Yeah. And I think especially that what's really important to know is just like sleep and is just like one of the most important things that you can do. You know what I mean? Like sleeping is what retains memories. Sleeping is like how you are able to like function during the day. It's how you are able to de-stress, you know what I mean? Whenever you don't sleep, I believe it's cortisol levels are at an all-time high. So sleep is king, you know what I mean? Like there's a reason why people when they're talking, they're like, um, I'd rather you like go to sleep and like n not study than pull the all-nighter because you're not going to be able to learn. Because at the end of the day, like whenever you are losing that sleep, you are losing like a lot of your ability to actually learn. I know that a lot for a lot of people where they're taking like all-nighters, but then like I know for me, like whenever I don't like sleep for a little bit, my mood and just like a lot of like emotions are like on a weird like they just become like not right. I'm like, something's not right, and a lot of that's just like sleeping is just like needs to be a priority because it truly like affects everything.
100%.
For sure. Yeah, I'm like so irritable when I know that I haven't had enough sleep, and I can't be irritable with my job because I'm dealing with people all day long, and whatever might be going on is not their fault that I'm tired and overworked. So I think it's, like you said, so important, and one of the best things that you can do for your body, and people really underrate it because they feel people who are ambitious or entrepreneurs or any of those things, they feel like they're useless when they sleep because so they always just keep going, keep going, keep going till they crash and burn, literally.
100%.
I used to struggle with it really bad. I would always be like, gosh, I can't be lazy when I'm like, good golly, I only slept 4 hours last night. No wonder I'm dragging.
And I think a really bad thing that ends up happening is like in college, it becomes like a competition on who can be the most unhealthy person, being like, well, I got 3 hours of sleep. And no, I actually got 30 minutes. And then, no, I actually pulled an all-nighter. And then it becomes just like a competition to see who can be the most
And
unhealthy person.
and still went out last night. Yeah,
Yeah,
no, for
100%.
sure. Yeah, I agree. And it then you just like are influenced by the people around you.
100%.
Awesome. I will upload this to YouTube and send y'all the link. That way we
Okay,
can
that sounds
come
good.
with this.
I'll probably submit it maybe tomorrow night. I need to catch up on some other homework.
I know
You're all
group
good.
projects are kicking my tail right now. It's insane.
Okay,
But
study for
that's
that test. Well, I didn't know it was on paper.
I can't believe we have a 2-day test where it's 50 questions each, and it's gonna be 100 total questions, and we don't get any help. Oh
oh,
God, it's okay.
yay. Okay, well, yeah, I'm not worried about it. I'll get this when I have a safety stand on right now, but as soon as I get done, I'll upload it and send it to y'all, but no rush because I
Okay.
was late
All good.
Sunday too. Thank
All
y'all.
right.
All right,
Thank
you have a
you.
good one. Bye bye.